Today we're going to show you the 718U5M transceiver from Rockwell Collins. This radio is an HF avionics transceiver, single sideband and AM and CW. And it consists of basically three main modules. The first one is the 671U4A receiver exciter, which sits on the 990C3 mount. Here we have the power amplifier and the antenna tuner, which is the 548S3A module. And here you can see that. I don't know if it comes out. And it sits on a 990C5 mount. As you can see, it can be removed pretty easily by loosening these screws. This would normally sit in the avionics bay in the of the aircraft with a lot of other avionics modules like computers and GPS modules and you name it. And here we have the control box. This is the extended control unit for this type of radio. It is the 514A7. A microprocessor controlled unit that allows electronic tuning with toggle switches, and it has 10 memories. And of course we have this mounted in a panel together with the receiver exciter and the power amplifier to basically make it one radio. Normally this would sit in the pilot's dashboard. That's the only thing that the pilot would see. And of course we have it mounted here in a rack system to have it complete. Now this particular one, here you see the top is almost unused. The temper seals are still in place of the several modules. Collins temper seals, anti-temper seals. And the rack basically contains all the support electronics to make this work. And the cable harness which connects the several modules. This is the connector for the control unit. Here we have the main connector for the receiver exciter. RF output and input for the receiver exciter, and of course for the power amplifier everything is mounted on the front. And on the back we have the antenna terminal, which I'll show you in a moment. This here is optional for switching in an added serial coil for antennas that are electrically short. I have never had the need to get that installed. It works fine on my antennas. But if you work with electrically very short antennas, then this loading coil is available as an option from Collins. This is basically the unit which we're going to demonstrate to you as a working unit. The only thing I wanted to show you, I told you this is the extended control box that was mostly used by the military, because this radio also was used as the ARC-174 by the military. Exactly the same radio. The only difference is that the military has the secure voice upper sideband and secure voice lower sideband, which is, as you can see, a part of this particular control unit. That does need an external encryption unit, but the selector is present on this box. The box that was used in civil aviation doesn't have those settings. The box that was mostly used in that case is the one that I have here for you. This is like a manual controlled unit, you know, it's like an odometer mechanical switch. And we have the normal modes here, upper sideband, lower sideband, AM and test mode. So there is no secure voice on this particular one. This is what you will mostly see in earlier models of the 747. If you ever see photos of those from the 1970s, 1980s, you mostly see that particular unit. Today, it is hard to have an avionics radio sitting like that on your desk. Aircraft still have single sideband avionics radios. That's actually a requirement for long distance airplanes, especially when they cross the oceans. But everything is integrated in a pilot's control system with lots of LCDs and you name it. So there is no individual box anymore for the HF radio. It is part of a large computer screen, a computer system that integrates all kind of other functions as well. So if you wanted to have a modern HF radio sitting on your desk like that, you would have a massive control unit that also controls a whole bunch of other things, so that's not a lot of fun anymore. But these radios from this particular era still had their own individual control box, and it is possible to build it up the way I have done here. Let's turn it on and see what it can do. Alright, put the camera on a tripod, it's a little bit easier. Now, avionics radios usually use these kind of microphones. This is the Telex 66T, there's other kinds. And as you can see, that is what is kind of standard. Those microphones simulate a carbon element, so it's like a biased microphone. It does have a dynamic element, but there is electronics to convert that into a carbon simulating concept. But I didn't like that, so I wanted to be able to use standard military microphones and handsets. This is the one that is usually used by the US military. It is the M80U, and that is just the dynamic element. There is nothing else in there. And this is the telemic for that, which is the H189CR. And the nice thing about that is that you also have an earphone element. You know, you can use it for both the listening as well as speaking. So I do have a speaker in here which is amplified with an audio amplifier, but the volume on this unit controls the headset, and the volume here controls the speaker, so it can be set independently. Let's turn it on and see what we get here. This is the main breaker. It powers the unit. So the unit is now seeing 27.5 volts DC, but it's not on. For that we have to use the control box. And it defaults to 2 megahertz. Now I can set a memory. This is the Maritime Mobile Service Net. There's not much going on today, or right now I should say. But I can basically select and program 10 memories like that, and they're non-volatile. The unit keeps that memory in SRAM. There is no battery needed inside, no lithium battery. If we go back to VFO, then we basically use this here for the megahertz tuning. This is the 20 meter band. We're now in the CW part of the band, the RTTY. Now we're getting into the phone section of the band. So you basically can set each digit, and you can set that from 2 megahertz to 30 megahertz, or 29.99999 I should say. This is our megahertz. This is our 100 kilohertz, 10 kilohertz, 1 kilohertz, and this is our 100 hertz setting. So that's the smallest resolution. And like I said, the simpler control box does the same thing. So the interface for this box is identical as that unit. Actually, this box would fit in there, drop in compatible, but this box does not have any memories, of course. So this is the fancier box, like I said. What the radio is capable, I kind of already mentioned it. Upper sideband, lower sideband, amplitude modulation, lower sideband, amplitude modulation. CW changes the carrier point, but it's still the wide filter. And we have secure voice, upper sideband and lower sideband. That's basically a digital mode, and for that the AGC is turned off, and it gives off a constant amplitude, which is needed for the secure voice unit that would be connected to here with a digital hookup. RF test mode allows you to carry out certain tests, diagnostic tests. Right now there is some kind of rare DX on this channel. This is the volume for the speaker, and this is the volume for the handset. So you can set that independently. There is a squelch, I'll show it to you. It has multiple steps, but it's pretty effective in the first step already. If I go to, well, let's find the clear channel. You see, without any signal coming in, the squelch turns it off. It's a so-called syllabic squelch. It does not work on the AGC signal. It works on by analyzing what kind of audio is coming off. You know, if there's only noise coming off, that has very few low frequency components, and then the squelch kicks in. Once it detects low frequency components which are present in voice, then it opens up. It's kind of nice. It works pretty effective, and it doesn't drive you crazy when you just listen to a clear channel. Let's look at some other things. I'm going to show you the rear of the unit, and we're also going to see how the transmitter behaves, and maybe some tests at higher or lower frequencies. Let's see how the modulation and the power levels work. We have the radio at 14.245. We have our monitor receiver at that same frequency, upper sideband. Here is our watt meter. Full scale is 250 watts. And as you will see, as soon as I press the microphone, the auto tuner will kick in. Let's switch to the dummy load. And that's what we have now. But not to bother anyone. And let's see what we get. This is the tuning power, about 50 watts. And this is what we get for the modulation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Collins 6185M transmitter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Upper sideband. Upper sideband. Let's go to the lower sideband. I gotta do the same here. A little less volume maybe. Let's try it again. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lower sideband. The lower sideband we get about 110 watts from the Collins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go to amplitude modulation. And we do the same thing here. Amplitude modulation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A bit more volume. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing amplitude modulation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As you can see, the unit maintains 100 watts at peak, and as we modulate, it lowers the carrier level, so we can never over modulate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the amplitude modulation. Now I think it is amplitude modulation with one sideband. We can test that. Upper sideband. Our frequency here. Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Upper. I am in amplitude modulation, but I am in the upper sideband. If I now go to the lower sideband on my receiver. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, actually, it transmits in both sidebands. I did not know that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it transmits real amplitude modulation. I thought it was amplitude modulation equivalent, where only one sideband with the carrier is transmitted, but that appears not to be the case for this radio. I actually did not know that. That is interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's really amplitude modulation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That works quite well. Modulation from the 718 U5M. Okay, here you see the rear of the equipment. This was the receiver exciter. The warranty label is still on the mount. This is the back of the power amplifier. It has a screw terminal where you can connect a wire antenna. I have not done that. I have basically connected to a 50 ohm coaxial cable. So I am letting the tuner basically match the 50 ohm. It does that without a problem. But you know, as it is a tuner equipped to tune things like long wires in planes, aircraft, it actually can do that too. It's a pretty wide range antenna tuner that's built in there. Now what we have here, so it's basically done according to the manual. Here you see the fuses. This is the fuse for the 548S3 power amplifier. I'll get a little bit closer. 20 amp fuse for the power amplifier, the 548S3. This is the 671U4 fuse, 5 amps. And here we have the fuse for the control box. The 5114A7 control box is a 1 amp fuse. So the units all have their individual fuses as is required according to the manual. You should not tie it all together. This is the DC power connector. 27.5 volts is what usually is the standard in aircraft. Now what we have on the inside, don't know if you can see it, but there is a large diode there, one of those diodes that have a big nut. That basically protects the unit if somebody makes a reverse voltage error. If that happens, the fuses won't go. What will pop is this, difficult to see from here, there is a circuit breaker there, you probably also saw that from the front, which is also used as an on-off switch. If a reverse polarity error is made, then the circuit breaker will trip, and that's all that will happen. Here you can see how the control box is mounted, basically with its original latches to mount it in a dashboard. This is the power amplifier. As you can see, it still has the Collins anti-tamper seal. This is the top of the receiver exciter. This connects the receiver exciter with the rest of the unit. This is the output of the receiver exciter, which goes to the power amplifier, which you saw on the front. And here we have our connector for our control box, which all goes together in this wiring harness. And that shows you a little bit how it's all have been hooked up. This shows the support electronics a little bit better. Now this is the audio amplifier that brings my headphone level from the control box to speaker level, and you can see that speaker here. There is a DC separator to avoid any hum. This basically converts the 28 volts to 5 volts for this audio amplifier. The same is true for the audio input, which is also isolated by a transformer, little signal transformer, to prevent any hum. Same is true for the microphone input. Now normally this radio works on a biased microphone, like a carbon microphone or a carbon simulating microphone. That is not the case here. I have used the 600 ohm balanced input, that's the data input, because I wanted to run this radio with a dynamic microphone, a standard handset. I'll show that to you. This is the type of military handset that I wanted to use for this, and those have dynamic elements, and that is accomplished by the circuit here. First we have a balanced to unbalanced transformer to bring it to 150 ohms. Then we have a bias circuit here to make that work with this circuit that converts that from a biased microphone input to a dynamic microphone input. That actually comes from a microphone circuit that I've mounted in here, and that is also separated, isolated I should say, with a signal transformer to prevent any kind of hum. So this whole palette supports all that, and it's hooked up according to, again, the installation manual, and it works quite well. Here a little bit better look at that diode I was talking about. This massive diode prevents any screw-ups, and in terms of polarity errors, voltage polarity errors, and like I said, it will trip the circuit breaker that is mounted in the front panel. So we have it open. I might as well show you the ID plate for the control box. Like I said, this is the extended version of the control box. There is also a simpler version that has the mechanical dials. This is the true electronic box with an audio amplifier and with a 10 memory circuit. So you can store 10 memories with this unit, non-volatile memories. Took off the connector in order to show you the palette, but this is basically the kind of military style connector that goes on there. Now we have it on there again.
Better to look through the little catalog they mail out.
Just wanted to show you the night light. That's what this switch does. Pretty cool, huh? During the day you can hardly notice it.
I stopped looking at their catalogs at surplus sales years ago. They were just totally insane in what they wanted for stuff.
It looks really cool at night.
I get them in the mail and throw them straight in the trash.
We're at 40 meters right now.
You gotta, and remember you're dealing with dBs in the Q, so you want to start at a minimum and increase, and see what you come up with, but as a rule, I think we can get it. We just have to play with it, you know. And of course, the best way to do it is listen with headphones and have somebody out there who can. South 31 north, west of 65 west, including Bahamas and the Caribbean Sea. And there, Tim, over. Right off our freeway, and it's not quite as big as the Loma Linda University Hospital in Loma Linda. In the old days, I used to, one of my jobs was I worked in nuclear medicine, and they ordered what we call a dual-headed. I only stayed with that company for about a year and a half, and then I went over to Abbott Laboratories, Abbott Pharmaceutical, and worked in their nuclear division. I wasn't always in nuclear, but toward the end, that's what I was doing. So I'll turn it back to you, see if we're still hanging in there with you. N1 G.I. Joe, that's very good. From K6, Cute Killer Diller.
Yeah, some people think I need to be in the hospital, I'll tell you. Yeah, we just switched over 65 years old not long ago. Work for a company called Package Corporation, and we make heavy trash bags and get the phone plate.
Squelch is activated now. If I go to the lower sideband, it will kick in. Works quite well, actually.
It was in a 4-ton lead ball, and it took about 3 hours to roll the thing 100 feet because it's so heavy. It kept busting all the tile up, and we had to take sheets of steel and put on it so we could roll it into the room. But got it all done.
This is Memory Channel 1. It's on the Maritime Mobile Service Net.
Turn the Maritime Mobile Service Net back to its original format. Looking for any maritime mobiles, marine mobile stations with or without traffic. Please call K0PAS.
I just wonder, what do you do with that cobalt machine? What's it for? Some sort of radiation? Oh yeah, it's checking for bones, you know, bone marrow, bone strength, things like that. It's just mainly like an echo chamber. It tells you
Looks really nice.
Oh, okay. This is Ron Romeo.
Let's try to find some stations at higher frequencies. Propagation is not great today, but we'll give it a shot.
Uniform 004, from the Republic Trinidad and Tobago. Simply cheese and have a good evening. Enjoy the DX60 QSL.
There is some propagation at the free band. It's the only place where I could hear stations. 10 meter is entirely quiet, unfortunately. So we have to fall back on our trusted free banders. We seem to have some openings to South America, I think it is. So that's the higher channels. Pretty sensitive there too. And it puts out good power. Like I said, it transmits anywhere from 2 to 30 megahertz. And this frequency is no exception. 100 watts with these.
Lots of QRM interrogation frequency. QRM, lots of QRM QSL. Okay, many QRM on frequency. Many QRM on frequency. Could you please repeat your call ID? Repeat QSL.
That works well. Okay, that was basically it. The 718U5M avionics transceiver from Rockwell Collins. HF radio, upper sideband, lower sideband, AM and CW. In the military used as the RC-174, which is actually the configuration you see here, because of the presence of the secure voice upper and lower modes. Very professional unit, very useful for the handbands. And it's not too big, that's the other nice thing. This radio was produced, I think, up to 1994, 95, not quite sure. This particular 671U4A receiver exciter was used in many other Collins radio configurations. The PA unit was developed later, so this came first. This is developed in the 70s. This is probably coming from the 80s, I would think. In earlier versions of this radio, this was a different amplifier with a ceramic tube in the PA. I think that was the 718U2. Alright, thank you for watching this.